A chilling life and death drama at the World Trade Center in New York City. A massive explosion in an underground garage. At least 7 are dead, as many as 500 or more injured. Tens of thousands struggle to escape through smoke-filled stairwells.
And everybody's stuck in the stairs. I mean, everybody could have died.
Could it be international terrorism? We'll ask FBI Director William Sessions. And every parent's nightmare. Your child trapped high in a smoke-choked skyscraper. We'll have the story of 2 kindergarten classes who made it out alive.
This is a CBS News special report. From CBS News headquarters in New York, here is Dan Rather.
Good evening. There is still no official word on what caused the lunchtime explosion beneath the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center here in New York City, but all indications are it was a car bomb. No one is saying who might have planted it. But to be safe, security has been tightened around the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C., at major airports in the New York area and in some other places. The explosion tore through an underground parking garage used by the Secret Service, spreading smoke and fear through one of the tallest and most crowded business centers on the planet. Correspondent Scott Pelley is live tonight at the 110-story World Trade Center in downtown Manhattan. Scott?
Dan, at least 7 dead, 600 injured, many of them hurt in the bomb blast itself, others suffering from smoke inhalation. Authorities will not confirm this publicly tonight, but federal agents have told CBS News they believe it was a bomb. They think so because of the extensive blast damage in the garage itself, and also because of evidence of extremely high heat in the blast area. When it happened, many people in the World Trade Center were on their way to lunch. There had been no threat, no warning.
The whole building shook, and then the lights went out. So we had to walk down from the 31st floor. Something exploded.
We heard a tremendous explosion. The entire building shook.
We weren't moving. It was getting smokier. A lot of carbon in the smoke, and I don't know, it didn't look good.
The explosion hit just after noon and shook the entire city block. Fires erupted in the basement of the #1 tower, and in seconds, thick, acrid smoke shot through all 110 stories. Tens of thousands of people were suddenly trapped in the dark, searching for a way out.
I was at a desk, and I seen the flash coming towards me, and I bent down, and the desk somehow landed on top of me. So when the walls and stuff came down, came on the desk, and I just crawled for the exits.
Hours after the explosion, people were still coming out of the towers. Some had to walk down 100 flights. Others were trapped in elevators. Each had their own story of escape.
And everybody's stuck in the stairs. I mean, everybody could have died. Yeah. It's another smog. You can breathe. You can breathe.
How many floors did you just come down? 105. What's it like? How long did your trip take? It took about, what, an hour and 10 minutes? It was moving at first. Stairwells filled up with smoke, no announcements. It flattened out to a hallway on 70 when probably was the scariest.
The stairway was packed. We couldn't move forward or backwards. It was full of smoke and nobody was moving. And I know we all thought this is it, the smoke inhalation.
In a nearby evacuation center, several survivors said they received no evacuation instructions. Emergency lighting failed, and some emergency exits wouldn't open.
I ran out to the elevator to see if they were working. They weren't working. I went around to the other companies on the floor, told them to exit because we didn't know what was happening. We tried calling the emergency number to find out what the shock was from. I guess the phones had gone dead at that point. So we tried to get on the stairwells, and the stairwells were just packed with people. And we managed to get down to, I guess, about the 3rd floor, and the door was locked. The emergency door was locked. We couldn't get out.
You've had evacuation drills, procedures?
They take you out into the lobby, they look at you, they tell you, oh, in case of a fire, come out to the lobby and wait for further instructions. There are no further instructions. That thing was a total waste of time. All the procedures that they put in place were useless.
The building owner, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, denies that any exits were blocked, but does admit the emergency communications system was knocked out.
We lost the communications system in the Trade Center as a result of the explosion. That meant that we could not give the normal notices that we do through the public address system. It was unfortunate that we did not have that system, but the system was disrupted by the explosion itself.
We opened up the door, and we had opened up other elevators, and people came out to greet us, thank you, and all that
This elevator, there were 10 people laying on the floor, and none of them moved. All we heard was one woman cry.
The shape they came out in, we had to carry some of them out, and we had them on.
Each and every one of them out of the elevator.
We had them on oxygen immediately, and then we gave our own Scott masks, and that's what they used to breathe. It was, I hadn't seen anything like it.
The bomb ripped through 3 floors of the parking garage, sending the ceiling of the subway station below crashing onto commuters. Tonight, the buildings are said to be structurally sound, but engineers will have to reinforce the parking garage before police can investigate the bomb crater. At this hour, the power is back on in both towers of the World Trade Center. Firemen are combing through the building one more time, but it is believed tonight that everyone is out. The building superintendent told me earlier today that there are simply no explanations involving mechanical failure that could have caused this kind of damage. Not an electrical fire, not a natural gas main break. The only working theory at this hour is that a bomb caused all of this devastation. At least 9 individuals have called local authorities claiming responsibility for the explosion. But the fact is, at this hour, the police simply don't know who did this or why. Dan?
Scott Pelley, who arrived on the scene within minutes after the explosion at the World Trade Center, thanks. The FBI is taking the lead in the investigation of the explosion. Was it terrorism? If so, who is responsible? FBI Director William Sessions has been monitoring developments from the command center in Washington. I spoke with the FBI Director a short while ago. On the basis of what you have been told, can you confirm to us that it was a bomb?
I would not want to speculate now as to what it was, Dan. We will not know until we're actually down with our experts in the area and are able to determine from what their investigation shows.
Do you immediately draw up a list of suspects or possibilities?
That is immediately in your mind. That is, you begin to go through the possibilities of what may have brought about the event, who may have been involved, but it at this stage is not focused on that totally. We need to know a good deal more, both from the crime scene and from the gathering of other intelligence that may come in.
It's important to us and for the audience to determine what are the facts and what is unknown. Fact, this was an explosion.
That's obvious, yes.
You are not in a position to confirm whether it was in fact a bomb or not that caused the explosion.
No, we cannot, and it may be hours before that can actually be confirmed as involving explosives or not.
Maybe hours before you can absolutely confirm that.
I would think so, because until they're actually down in the area, actually able to examine the area directly, you would not know.
To your knowledge, anyone been arrested in connection with this crime?
No, there has not been that I know of.
Any suspects that you know of?
Not that I know of at all, but that will develop over the period of time during the investigation.
Now, put in some context and perspective for us, the widespread speculation, and I underscore, italicize the word, that, well, quote, this must be some kind of terrorist act, unquote.
Well, of course, until you actually are down at the crime scene and have the evidence from the crime scene, you're not entitled to speculate, Dan. That would be the worst possible thing that could be done. We prepare for these events to investigate them fully and carefully, and therefore speculation has no place in it until you actually, no place in it at all. You must go on the basis of what you're able to find from the evidence of the scene.
Mr. Director, in your opinion, what's the most important thing for the public at large to know about this case at this hour?
Well, I think it's not unlike our situation during Desert Storm and Desert Shield. We were concerned that there might be acts that would either be terroristic in nature or would cause panic in the public. And I think the public ought to react, that the investigation will be carried out fully, completely, competently by all the investigative agencies that are involved, and that the Bureau will do exactly that as well.
But the FBI is the lead investigative agency if it's determined this is a terrorist act?
It will, in fact, be the lead agency if the belief is that it is a terrorist act. That's correct.
Mr. Director, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Dan. Good to talk with you.
FBI Director Judge William Sessions. For 2 kindergarten classes, this day began with a much-anticipated field trip to the top of the World Trade Center. It became the scare of a lifetime for them and their worried parents. Correspondent Giselle Fernandez has the story of the youngest survivors.
In freezing temperatures, exhausted rescue crews grew increasingly frustrated as they worked late into the evening. Hours were passing and still handicapped adults, pregnant women, and children remained trapped high above Manhattan.
We kept them on the top floor until we were sure of the best way to evacuate them downstairs.
All night long, survivors traumatized by the ordeal slowly emerged from high floors. But authorities were worried about 200 children, most of them kindergartners, who came to visit and ended up trapped for hours.
Myself and Jerry Bonner went all the way to the observation deck on
That's
the
what,
top
110
floor.
floors?
110 floors.
The elevators still were broken, so gently, firefighters led the 5- and 6-year-olds down endless flights of dark stairwells.
We basically held their hand and escorted them down the stairs. That was a problem. There must have been 60 first and second graders, that many kids in a completely dark stairwell. It was a dangerous situation.
As the kids finally emerged from the towers, many were confused and frightened, but there were also a lot of smiles.
They were very happy to see us. Some kids were upset. They worried about their parents.
And their parents were obviously anxious to see them. In Brooklyn, mothers and fathers frantic all day cheered their children's return in an emotional reunion.
Sharon!
Smell like smoke.
Someone told me that it was dark in there. Was it dark?
Yeah.
And what did you do for all that time? Were you guys singing? What did you sing? I heard you were singing songs and stuff.
We were singing a lot of songs. And we prayed.
That was my first trip and my last trip. You know, I'm never going to go again.
Parents credited firefighters for being the first to reach them and called them heroes.
And would you call yourself a hero for climbing 110 flights of stairs?
Part of a day's work.
While this was a day of tragedy for many families in the metropolitan area, it was also a day that produced countless heroes. Some firefighters said rescuing the children was a highlight, but just one of hundreds of success stories. Giselle Fernandez, CBS News, New York.
We'll have more of our CBS News special report in a moment. Coming up next, a mother-to-be on the job at the top of the tower. She'll tell us the story of her dramatic rescue by air. So stay here with us.
You want a half a pound of regular Swiss cheese? You want all that fat, cholesterol, sodium, and calories? No, 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 no. Not in this deli. I'm giving you Alpine Lace Swiss low because I care how you and you eat.
Sweet, succulent, sun-sweet, pleasantly pitted prunes. Sweet, sun-sweet, succulent. Sweet, succulent, sun-sweet, pleasantly pitted prunes. They are so much easier to eat. Can we try it again? Keep going.
Hello?
Hello, it's Candace Bergen with a question for you.
Yes?
You've got AT&T's 800 service?
Always have, always will.
Well, did you know that only Sprint offers a 90-day money-back guarantee if you're not satisfied?
AT&T sure doesn't do that.
And those are the guys you want to stay with?
Well, whatever gave you that idea?
Do you know what you need to know about managing your money? Take the Wall Street Journal Personal Finance Test and find out. Are you wasting money by buying a car rather than leasing it? Are there drawbacks to refinancing a loan at a lower rate? When can you throw away old tax returns? You'll find the answers in this free book, The Wall Street Journal Guide to Understanding Personal Finance. The guide is filled with information, from financing your new car to refinancing your home. There's even information on how to lower your taxes. It's yours free when you subscribe to the Wall Street Journal. Every business day, the Wall Street Journal gives you the news, analysis, and insights you need to make the right decisions for your business, your career, your future. Subscribe now to the Wall Street Journal. Get 13 weeks of the Journal for $37, over 20% off the newsstand price, and your free copy of the Guide to Personal Finance.
Call 800-525-8400. That's 800-525-8400.
Back now with more of our special report on today's deadly explosion here in New York. The blast shook a city landmark literally to its foundations. At 1,350 feet, the World Trade Center's twin 110-story towers were the world's tallest buildings when they opened 20 years ago. They are now the second tallest behind the Sears Tower in Chicago. The explosion at the World Trade Center went off below the Twin Towers, punching a 180-foot hole in the wall of an underground parking garage and 60-foot crater in the floor. The force of the blast reached down to the commuter train station below the garage. The ceiling of the train station collapsed on waiting passengers while thick smoke rose up through the skyscrapers. The effort to rescue people trapped inside produced countless stories of heroism, among them the story of New York City police officer John Caffarella of the New York City Police Emergency Services Unit. One of the first officers to arrive, he climbed 90 stories, think about that, 90 stories, to help the physically disabled make it down the long, dark stairwells. Officer Caffarella is with us tonight. Thank you for being with us. Tell us what was the most impressive, most memorable thing you saw and heard.
Some of the things I saw when I was going up there were people pretty much listening to what I had to say, following my directions, remaining calm, and working somewhat as a buddy. They were pretty much in a panic state at the time we got to them.
And how did people generally behave in that panic state?
Okay, very cautious. They weren't sure exactly what I was saying. They wanted a way out of this building, which was smoke-filled. I calmed them down, and pretty much they listened, and they realized I was talking sense to them.
And what did you tell them, officer?
Basically, hug the wall, hug the railing. When the lights went out, if you have any sort of flashlights, light them, and go down very, very slowly. It's a slow descent down these 90 floors.
And how long did that take?
It must have taken about 6 hours, 6 or 7 hours.
Ooh, long time. Officer John Caffarella, one of the day's heroes. Thank you very much. At the height of the emergency, helicopters ferried rescue workers to the roof of the World Trade Center and evacuated people trapped in the building. Among them is Debbie Matooth, a technician at the WCBS TV transmitter atop the skyscraper, and by the way, an expected mother. Debbie is with us tonight, live on the set. Thank you for being with us, Ms. Matooth. We're glad you got out all right.
Thank you, Dan.
Were you scared when you first started smelling the smoke?
Yeah, I was petrified. I was in a slight state of panic, actually. Myself and another coworker, Isaiah Rivera, were up there, and we have Scott packs up there, and we got those ready, and we were trying to get some kind of direction. We couldn't get through because all the lines were busy. And it was scary. I looked out in the peephole in the door, and all I saw was black smoke. I couldn't see anything.
What were you thinking at that moment?
I was afraid, because I was afraid of for my baby, because I'm early in the pregnancy, so I'm at a dangerous state. So I was scared for that. I was scared for our lives, and we didn't know what was going on.
Well, you must have talked about emergency procedures. Did any of them work?
Well, what we initially had talked about was to go down, and what we ended up doing was going up. So I always felt that was better, because we're closer. We're only right by the stairway to go up. So.
What you mean, the helicopters came to?
And the helicopters came. They had to take some lights off and break down a couple of antennas, and they couldn't do it on the first try. They did it when they got all the lights off, and it was very windy up there. And it was very dangerous for the helicopter pilots to do that, and they really did an excellent job of doing that.
Well, we're very glad you made it out. I'm glad you came with us tonight. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Hope you have time off. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
The World Trade Center is owned and operated by the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. Now, among those stranded for a time in the Twin Towers was the authority's executive director, and he is now safe and sound. He is with us tonight on the ground and prepared to talk with us a bit. We thank you very much for being with us. Appreciate you taking time. What about these reports that there were locked doors, that none of the emergency procedures worked? You've heard these. I want to give you a chance to respond to them.
Well, the truth is that the systems didn't work, but the reason for it was that the explosion knocked out our primary system, which handles the energy for our elevators, our communications system, and for our heating and ventilation. And the blast also knocked out a completely redundant secondary system, completely independent of this system. So powerful was the explosion that it severed the lines to the emergency generators that run the secondary system. In addition, the blast knocked out our operations desk and our central police desk. So all four of those things were knocked out by a really powerful blast, and all of the redundancies that we had built into the systems for safety's sake were wiped out.
Now, you spent a good part of the day on, what, the 57th floor? What was it like there?
Well, I started out on the 67th, when we went down to the 50th and then the 49th and 48th. Well, let me say that people were remarkable in their quiet heroism. Not having the advantage of real communication, people were very orderly. I'm talking about hundreds and even thousands of people walking down the steps, following instructions, moving off into areas where we could wait, which is ultimately what we all decided to do. I was with about 400 or 500 people on the 49th floor for most of the time. People helped one another. We carried wheelchairs down the stairs in teams and shuttled people in and out of the teams. Asthmatics were cared for, and a couple of pregnant women. So it was quite frightening. On the other hand, people were just remarkable in the way they handled it.
Appreciate you being with us, Stanley Brezhnev. Is everyone out of the building now?
Yes, as far as I know, everyone is out of the building. We've done a primary search, and now that the elevators are running again, we're in the midst of a secondary search, meaning that we've had emergency personnel, firemen, and police officers going through floor by floor.
Thank you very much. Hope you get a little sleep sometime during the night.
Thank you, Dan.
Our special report will continue in a moment. Up next, was it a terrorist bomb? We'll talk to two experts on terrorism and security.
You want regular cheddar cheese? You want all that fat, cholesterol, and calories? No, 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 no. Not in this deli. I'm giving you Alpine Lace fat-free cheese products because I care how you and you eat.
Fix-A-Dent Fresh. The spring water fresh feeling is reason enough to try it. And it's the strongest holding adhesive, so you'll never settle for anything less. Crisp freshness, strongest hold. Two great reasons to Fix-A-Dent and forget it.
Question. Which of these two instant coffees looks darker?
This one is definitely darker.
This one.
The one on the right's darker.
Is darker better? What do you think?
Dark, rich, what's not to like? What kind is it?
Decaffeinated Folgers Crystals.
I like it.
Tastes rich.
That'll get me going.
It's made with mountain-grown beans, fresh brewed, then crystallized. Want to know what the other coffee is?
Excuse me?
Try decaffeinated Folgers Crystals. So dark and rich, shouldn't you switch?
Endangered species? I've got a business to run.
Well, that wax he's using comes from the carnauba plant. And simple seaweeds better fit all kinds of businesses with ingredients for paints, fire extinguishers, and hundreds of foods. Fact is, there's something in nature for everyone. With countless species in jeopardy and more than 100 becoming extinct every day, can we really afford not to protect them? To learn more, call the National Wildlife Federation at 1-800-824-WILD.
Did you know you may have earned an extra $2,200 this year? If you had a job in 1992, earned less than $22,000, and had a child living with you, you may qualify for the Earned Income Credit. Call the IRS toll-free at 1-800-829-1040 to get the facts. Get the money you earned. File for your EIC today.
Picking up now with our live CBS News special report on the World Trade Center explosion here in New York City. The possibility that it was terrorism has the attention of official Washington tonight. CBS News law correspondent Rita Braber is tracking that part of the story from our CBS News Bureau in Washington. Rita, good evening.
Good evening, Dan. The main investigation into what happened at the World Trade Center will be conducted by a joint terrorism task force of the New York City Police and the FBI, along with a special bomb unit of the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. At this point, law enforcement officials just don't have an understanding of exactly what happened, much less why. But since first indications are that the damage was due to a bomb, and that could mean terrorism, they are taking the only precautions that they can. Security has been tightened at airports around New York City and in Washington, D.C. at the U.S. Capitol. Inside the FBI, the command center is being staffed around the clock. Intelligence agents will be in touch with their counterparts anywhere and everywhere, reaching out to sources who can help them find any hints, any links to the Trade Center disaster. But the best hope for figuring out what happened will be at the scene of the explosion. Things have been sealed up for the night because the area is too dangerous to work in. But tomorrow, crews will begin the tedious but crucial task of sifting through all that debris. And since they do believe the blast came from a bomb, they'll be looking for what's known as the signature of the bomb maker. Any wires, any devices, materials that have been found at previous bomb sites anywhere in the whole world that could be a clue into who could have plotted such a vicious attack, Dan.
Rita Braver, live in our Washington Bureau, thanks. Beyond the government, the explosion here in New York has raised the concerns of private experts in the fields of security and terrorism. Joining us from Los Angeles is Brian Jenkins of Kroll Associates, and with us here in New York is Michael Hirschman of the Fairfax Group. Thanks for being with us, gentlemen. First, Michael Hirschman, your opinion, which is all anybody can have now, was this the work of a terrorist?
It's hard to imagine anything causing that much damage but a bomb in that building. And if it was a bomb, then the likely culprit was a terrorist.
Now, we're not accusing anybody who don't know enough, but let's run down the list of suspects. When you have a bomb explosion of this sort, who and what are the first suspects that pop into your mind?
Well, what comes immediately to mind, of course, is the Middle East terrorist organizations that have been most active in recent times. But we've heard a lot of rumors now about Serbian terrorists and Croatian terrorists. I think it's going to be a while before we sort it all out. I understand there's been 7 different groups that have claimed responsibility. Obviously, someone is lying.
Now, Mr. Jenkins, what runs through your mind when you think about this case? What are the principal questions? Give me the top 3.
Well, the first question is, in fact, was it a bomb? The presumption right now is that it certainly appears to have been one, and judging by the reports of damage, it would be an explosive device of significant size, although any explosive effects would be magnified by being confined in an underground parking structure. The issue here, if with a car bomb, I mean, car bombs are not technically challenging. The issue is quantity, not quality. A car bomb is simply a convenient way of delivering a large quantity of explosives. Who might be behind it would be the second major question that we deal with. One can mentally round up the usual suspects. Certainly everybody is talking about the possibility of some type of Middle East connection, some type of Balkan connection, but there are dozens of conflicts around the world which have generated the type of hatred that would make an act like this possible. The third question that comes to mind is what will be the consequences. The fact is that it is virtually impossible to prevent bombs from going off in public places, although I suspect in the coming days we will certainly hear demands to do so. Certainly the alarm level is raised and everybody's security is going to go up at least 1 notch.
Michael Hirschman, what are the chances of catching the bomber?
Well, we've had a pretty good success rate in catching bombers in the past. In fact, just yesterday, a jury was chosen to try a former member of the Black September Palestinian organization who planted 3 car bombs in the 1970s here in New York City. He was finally caught in Italy in 1991 and extradited to the United States.
Mr. Jenkins, you said it's almost impossible to prevent this sort of thing. Are we now likely, in your opinion, to see an upsurge in this kind of crime?
Well, an event like this, if in fact it turns out to be a bomb, inevitably has a certain inspirational quality, whether that inspiration will be limited to 100 stupid hoaxes or whether it will produce smaller echoes in terms of actual bombings, is impossible to say. I mean, the history of political violence of this type, if it turns out to be that, suggests that the probability of the second event is greater than the probability of the first, whatever the probability of the first event is.
Now, you raised the question of whether this was in fact a bomb. Is there any doubt in your mind that it was a bomb given the size of the explosion?
Well, I don't know of any other working hypothesis. I mean, other things that cross people's mind in a situation like this that could cause massive destruction would be something connected with gas mains or electrical transformers. But no one has yet raised that as an issue, so I think it's just being a hard-nosed analyst that is preventing me from making the final jump into saying, yes, it is a bomb. I'd like to know a bit more.
We're just about out of time, but Michael Hirschman, your guess, it's all anybody can do. Is this going to be solved quickly?
No, it's going to take some time, and in fact I think it'll be some hours or even some days yet before they can positively identify the cause of the explosion, much less determine who did it.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Appreciate you being with us. So, the story of this hour. The lights are back on tonight at the big World Trade Center in New York, but authorities are still in the dark about a possible motive for what is believed to be a massive car bomb blast, a really huge one. At least 7 people were killed, as many as 500 possibly more injured in one way or another. The blast through a parking lot used by the Secret Service tore it apart. Security has been tightened up at the New York airports, the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C., and other places. And there are jitters among many Americans who thought and hoped that it couldn't happen here. CBS News will keep you up to date on this story throughout the weekend. For now, Dan Rather in New York. Thanks for being with us. Good night.
Do you know what you need to know about managing your money? Take the Wall Street Journal Personal Finance Test and find out. Are you wasting money by buying a car rather than leasing it? Are there drawbacks to refinancing a loan at a lower rate? When can you throw away old tax returns? You'll find the answers in this free book, The Wall Street Journal Guide to Understanding Personal Finance. The guide is filled with information, from financing your new car to refinancing your home. There's even information on how to lower your taxes. It's yours free when you subscribe to The Wall Street Journal. Every business day, The Wall Street Journal gives you the news, analysis, and insights you need to make the right decisions for your business, your career, your future. Subscribe now to The Wall Street Journal. Get 13 weeks of the journal for $37, over 20% off the newsstand price, and your free copy of the Guide to Personal Finance.
Call 800-525-8400. That's 800-525-8400.
All of these toilet bowl cleaners may clean, but not one of them disinfects. So you don't get your toilet totally clean unless you use Lysol toilet bowl cleaner. It easily reaches tough rust stains, and unlike those others, it disinfects for a deep down clean. Don't do part of the job. Get your toilet totally clean with Lysol toilet bowl cleaner.
For those who use Ecotrin for the relief of the minor aches and pains of arthritis, we've got a flash. You can wait hours for Ecotrin to start working, or with Genuine Bayer, you can wait just minutes. Genuine Bayer Aspirin, America's #1 aspirin.
Deep down, what's the dirtiest word in your bathroom? Lysol Basin Tub and Tile Cleaner has twice the cleaning power of the original formula to wipe out soap scum. And it even gets rid of germs. Get your bathroom deep down clean with Lysol Basin Tub and Tile Cleaner.
This has been a CBS News special report.
Experience CBS News.